Hello and welcome to my channel. I really appreciate you for stopping by today, for checking out my videos. I'm really appreciative. Please, if this is your first time checking out my video, you're welcome. Please remember to subscribe and also click on the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you. So today's video is on how to cut and sew a princess dart illusion dress or gown, and you can also make it into a blouse if you want. So please pay attention and make sure you watch to the end of the video. Thank you. So on my pattern paper, I've gone ahead to draw out a basic bodice pattern, and I'll take you through the lines. From my start line, which is the shoulder line, I have 9.5 inches for the chest line and 10.5 inches for the bust point line and 14.5 inches for my under bust, and the half length is 16 inches, and I have half inch joining allowance to join it to the skirt part. And I've also drawn out my neck. The neck width is 3.25 inches and the neck depth is 3.25 inches, and I've also drawn out my armhole line. Now I will impute half of my bust span measurement, which is 4.5 plus half inch for joining. I'll impute this measurement on the bust point line, the under bust line and the half length line, and I'll connect together. So then on this line on either side, I will take on the waistline, I will take half inch darts. I'll take half inch on both sides of this line I just made, and then on the under bust I will take 1 inch on both sides, and then from the bust point line I'll come down by 1 inch. I'll connect these points from the under bust to the waistline. I'll connect the lines, and then I'll use a curve ruler to connect from the 1 inch I came down by from the bust point. I'll use my armhole curve to connect from this point to the under bust dart. So now the next thing will be to take my armhole dart. I will take the armhole dart. So from the shoulder slope, where I came down for the shoulder slope, I would measure through along the armhole curve. I'll measure 6.5. That's where my dart will start. 6.5 inches. I would note that, and from that 6.5 inches I would take a dart of 1 inch. From the 6.5 inches I noted, I would measure out again. From that point I would take 1 inch, and that will be my dart for the armhole. So I would use a curve ruler to connect the 1 inch I just came down by, and also the point where I noted the 6.5 inches, and that will be the dart for the armhole. So I connected these darts, the dart from the armhole, to 1 inch below the bust point line and connected. So what I will do now will be to replace, in order not to have shortage when joining, I would check I have 1 inch I removed as dart from the armhole. I would replace that, as you see me do. I came up by 1 inch and connected it back to one of the lines, and then I would redraw my armhole. So I'll redraw the armhole. I'll connect this 1 inch I came up by to the chest line, and that will be my new armhole. I'll also check for the dart I'll be removing. When the dart is cut out, what would be removed from the chest line, and I'll also replace that about half an inch. Then I would impute 2.5 inches seam allowance on the chest line, 1 inch for joining the dart and 1.5 inches for side seam allowance. On my waistline, I will impute quarter of my waist measurement plus the 1 inch dart I would remove from the waistline, making it 11 inches. So I'll impute that 11 inches on my waistline, and I'll add extra 2.5 inches on the waistline, 1 inch for joining the darts together and 1.5 inch side seam allowance. So I'll connect the points from the chest line to the waistline. So I'll connect these points together. I'll blend all sharp parts on the darts, I would recheck my measurements and then I'll cut out. And also I forgot to mention that I also took half-inch joining allowance on the shoulder. When I came down for the shoulder slope, I also took half-inch from the shoulder slope for joining allowance. Then I'll cut out my pattern. So in case you do not know how to cut a basic bodice pattern, I will drop a link in the description box on how to cut a basic bodice pattern. I'll also drop the link on how to draft a princess dart bustier upper bodice in the description box. I explained in details how to draft a princess dart bustier in that video. So this is what we have. I've cut that out. I'll also trim out the neckline. So I'll use this pattern to cut out the lace part of this dress I'm making. I've cut out exactly what I have on the pattern. This is the lace part. I've cut out both the center front and the side front. Then I'll keep this aside and then alter the pattern for the center front in order to cut out the lining pieces. So this is my pattern again. So I'll remove the side front and then I'll alter the center front. From the shoulder slope line, I'll come down by 5.5 inches. I would measure from the shoulder slope line to 5.5 inches, and I'll also note that on the center front on the fold and then rule a line across the point 5.5 inches. So I would rule as shown. I came down by 5.5 inches because my princess that line started from 6.5 inches, so I left allowance for joining and turning the lining parts, the neckline for the lining parts, because that would look like an off shoulder, so I would need to turn the neckline. So for the neckline for the center front, I came down again by 1.5 inches because I want a sweetheart neckline, so I would connect like this back to the 5.5 inches line and then I would cut out. So I'll cut out this part that looks like a yoke. I would not be needing that, so I would be using the lower part which looks like an off shoulder. I would then use this part to cut out my lining pieces. So for the lining pieces for the center front, I have two, one on satin and one on my lining, and the satin I ironed interfacing and also wadding on it. Then for the side front, I have 4 pieces. The satin I have 2 pieces for each side, and for the lining I have 2 pieces as well. So on the satin pieces, I ironed interfacing and wadding on them. Then this is how it would look like. So I have placed my satin and then I'm placing my lace on top of it. The right side of the lace is up, that is the satin part. The right side is touching the wrong side of the lace. So I would join them as I've placed them like this. I'll join the satin and the lace. I'll join them together, hold them all together and join them on the dart line as I'm showing. That's how I'll join these pieces, and then I'll also join the lining pieces. Now I'll join the lining pieces together on the dart line as well. So after cutting this out, I'll go ahead and cut the back piece. I've also drawn out a basic bodice for the back. The chest line is 9.5 as well. There's no bust point or under bust. Then I have the waistline and the half-inch for joining. So I'll also take half of my bust span plus half-inch, which is 5 inches altogether. I'm taking my measurement starting from the zipper allowance line. So I'll join these points together to enable me take my dart. On the waistline, I will take half inches on both sides of this line, and I'll also come down by by 1 inch from the chest line, and I'll connect my darts. This is the dart, the waist dart for the back part. And also on the armhole part, I would take 6.5 inches for the princess dart line. So I would take 6.5 inches and I would connect this to the 1 inch I came down by from the chest line. Then from this line I will come up by half an inch in order not to have shortage, and I will join and reconnect to the chest line to have a new armhole, and this will be my new armhole. So from the zipper allowance side, I would come up from the waistline, I'll come up by 1.25 inches and connect to the side as shown, and this is to prevent the back waistline dropping way below the actual waistline for the back. Then I would impute my measurements, my circumference measurement. I've already imputed quarter of my bust measurement, so I would also add 2.5 inches seam allowance on the chest line. On the waist, I would replace the 1 inch I removed for that and also my waist measurements, and then 2.5 inches seam allowance I would connect. Then for the neckline for the back, I also used 3.25 inches neck width and a 1 inch neck depth for the back. So I would also recheck my measurements and then cut out the pattern. So I'll cut out the back. Also I added joining allowance on the shoulder for the back, so for the front. So at the back I also added half inch shoulder joining allowance as well. So after cutting out the back pattern, same thing as I did for the front, I will use this pattern first of all to cut out the lace fabric, the lace piece for the upper bodice, which I have done. I have cut out 2 pieces for the center back and 2 pieces for the side back. So from the shoulder slope line, I came down by 5.5 inches and I'm joining across like this. So I'll cut out this part. I do not want any design at the back neck, so I'll just cut it as it is straight this way before using this part to then cut out my lining pieces. So I have cut out the lining pieces. For the side back, I have 2 on satin, we have iron interfacing, and 2 on the lining, and also the center back I have 2 pieces of satin and 2 pieces of lining. So I will join them the same way I did for the front, the satin, then the lace fabric, and I will join them the same way, the lace fabric, the front sides up, and then the satin also, I'll join them on the dart sides. I'll also join the lining the same way. So I've joined the main part together. As you can see, I have joined together, and I've also joined the lining. I also notched the same side and ironed them open, and I also do the same on the lining. So now I will be turning the neckline for the lining pieces. I opened up, as you can see, and I will make the right side of the main fabric and the right side of the lining. You can see how I joined them. I'll pin them on the neckline. And also note that the wording, I didn't iron the wording close to these parts. The wording is 1 inch below where I would be joining. So I'll pin together and then I'll go and sew using half inch seam allowance. I would notch and then top stitch towards the lining piece. Then for the back part, I will do same. This is the back piece and this is the lining for it. So I would join them in such a way that the right sides are touching each other. As you can see, the right side, I'll bring out the right side of the satin piece, and also with the right sides of the lining touching the right side of the satin, I would pin on the neckline for this point. I will sew using half inch seam allowance and also top stitch. So I've turned the neckline. As you can see, I have turned the neckline, I've notched and top stitched towards the lining piece. I also did same for the back pieces. I did that for the 2 sides of the back. So what I will do now will be to close up the sides using the lining. I would turn the lining to the right side. I'll flip the lining to the right side facing the side that has the lace and the satin, and I'll sew using half inch seam allowance. I will do same for the other side, the zipper allowance side, and I'll use the lining piece to turn and sew using half inch seam allowance. I will do the same for the front piece. I would flip the lining over to the right side touching the right side of the lace. I would flip over and then I would use 1/2 inch to turn on both sides. Then after doing this, I would iron properly. As you can see, I have turned the sides of both the front and the back pieces, and this is what I've turned, and I will iron properly. Now I've gone ahead to cut out a skirt part for this dress off camera. I did this off camera to avoid making this video unnecessarily long, since it's all about making Princess That illusion, which is the upper part. So I will join the skirt part to the upper bodice using 1/2 inch seam allowance. I will join them together. I will join the back together to the skirt part and also do the same for the front part using 1/2 inch seam allowance. So after joining them together, the next thing I will do will be to join the front part and the back part together by the shoulder using the 1/2 inch seam allowance I left for it. I will join them together using 1/2 inch seam allowance I left when drafting the pattern. So after doing that, I will then use the scallop which I cut out from this lace, a lace trimming I made, the lower part of the lace. I measured what I have on the neckline and cut a length that is up to what I have on the neckline. So I'm pinning the scallop part which I have cut, which I want to use to finish up the neckline. You can also use a bias to do this, but I'm using the scallop, so I'll pin together and then join using 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I have also attached my zipper to the back part. I've gone ahead to attach zipper running from the attachment I made, the scallop attachment down. I closed down the remaining parts of the back part, and this is what I have. This is what it looks like. Then I would also, the sides are still open, I'll close the side using the seam allowance I have for the side, and I'll also attach a sleeve of my choice to the dress, and that would be complete the dress. So this is what it looks like for now. We are done with the main part, which is how to make the Princess That illusion. So as you can see, this is what I have. So this is how to make a Princess That illusion top or dress or whatever you want to make. If I open it up, you can see how it is inside. The inside part looks like a tube, and when you wear it, it will just relax on the body. So this is it, guys. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so, and also click on the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a new video. And please give this video a thumbs up. Till my next video, bye.